if you had like one question that you knew you could get the answer to around the Purple Hammer or Brunswick, is there a question? Is there like, man, I wish we could crack this code that maybe they have? Or do you think it's really, really effective marketing on the technology that they have?
Well, I mean, Craig, honestly.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another Tour Talks. You guys have loved this series, and we're trying to keep cranking them out every week. This week, I was very, very fortunate to have Hank Boomershine from Storm, the VP of Sales and Product Design, agree to sit down with me and do an interview. Hank, I know you're incredibly busy. Our channel's got like 3,000 subscribers. We're growing quickly, but for you to sit down with a channel that maybe doesn't offer the most amount of exposure says a lot about you. I really appreciate it a ton. So thanks for your time, man.
Well, I'm always glad to get a chance to talk to some good people, and Craig, you're a good guy, and you're a knowledge seeker, so I'll do my best to always help those people that are always in search of knowledge.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. And for those of you viewing that may not know Hank's background, we kind of had this a little bit with Ruben from Kegel. Sometimes people are looking to click on Belmo or those PBA guys that they immediately recognize. But guys like Hank really provide a unique perspective. So Hank has got tons of honor scores, so he's accomplished as a bowler, collegiately as well. He's also a USBC gold coach, so he's incredibly knowledgeable as a coach as well. And then he designs bowling balls and, is VP of sales of the biggest bowling ball manufacturer in the world. And that hasn't been for a short moment. You guys have been dominating for quite a while now. And so the list of people that can bring all of that information together, the competition, the coaching, the business and industry side, as well as the technical side, is like maybe two people. I mean, it's and once you add in the dominance of Storm, it's really just you. It's you and a couple guys there at Storm. So for the viewers, I really want to get into the shakeup at Storm, Bill's passing, what that looks like for the Storm enthusiasts, for the pro shops. Also want to talk about coaching versus bowling balls. If anyone can tell us how to think about that, it would be someone who's a gold coach and also designs bowling balls. And then, of course, USBC and PBA equipment specs. So there's been a lot of debate there. Again, no one would be better to talk to about that than a product designer. So first off, I guess getting into Storm, Hank, what has that been like? So for those of you that don't know, Tyler Jensen has recently taken over as the president, correct? And Barbara is still the CEO?
Yeah. I mean, with Bill's passing in September, and Dave Sims had retired earlier in the year. It was a period of we were working towards another president for the company, and with Bill's passing, it kind of fast-tracked it to put Tyler in that seat. I think Bill and Dave had been on the process of grooming him for the last couple of years. We'd brought him back into house from Dexter and done some international travels with him and let him be a little bit more of an international guy and kind of segueing in. But Bill and Dave were working down a path with Tyler as being the president.
Got it. Now, I try to be as honest as I can in these, and myself and a couple other pro shop guys were kind of thinking like, was Hank interested in that position or not? It seems like he's been there for a while. Storm's had a lot of success with you at the helm of designing products and at the head of sales. Was it a position you were interested in at all?
Sure. I mean, you're always looking to push yourself harder and push yourself to new levels. And I mean, 24 years here at Storm, I've been here a while. And I mean, to start as a tour rep and then be brought in-house to run the Roto Grip brand. And at those times, we had a Dyno-Thane brand as well, too. And then the whole time in that progression, I was developing products for the two brands. And then I started developing products for the other brand, for Storm. And they put me in charge of sales in 2007. So, and then I've been head of R&D, and that since probably 2007 as well too. So to run sales and R&D for quite a period of time here. And I mean, sure, you'd always want to progress to that point. But Bill and I had a lot of candid conversations, and he had talked to me a little bit about Tyler and that progression, and I understood. And he kind of said, "I feel bad for you." And I said, "Why you feel bad for me?" But he goes, "Because you're really good at what you do, and I don't want to take you out of what you do. Mm-hmm. So I know you'd probably like to aspire to that position, but I really want to keep you where you're at because you do such a good job at that." So it's a compliment on one side, but you feel like, oh man, I wish I would have maybe got that chance, but I understand, and I get it. I mean, I'm 54 years old now, and probably going to be maybe another 10, 12 years working in the industry before I decide, hey, I'll try to enjoy life as much as I can before the end of it.
Yeah, I mean, and this is what makes me so excited about being in the industry, is working with guys like you who can answer that question so openly and honestly with really no ego, no pride. And there is just a good amount of guys that are at the top of the industry that make such great mentors and role models in that way. So kudos to you for being such a great team player. I hope with Virtue, with my pro shops, I can hope to attract guys that have that same kind of mentality. So for the big Storm fans out there, what do you feel like? You obviously knew Bill pretty well. You know Tyler pretty well. Do you think they should anticipate seeing any kind of subtle changes in the trajectory of Storm?
I think you got to remember is I've known Tyler quite a long time. I actually hired Tyler the first time as a sales rep to work for Roto Grip. And and Bill had known Tyler since Tyler was, I think, 12 or 13 years old, bowling. I think he used to call Bill probably, I guess he'd call him once a week when he was like 13 or 14 years old, asking bowling ball questions and things way back in the day. And so that relationship that Bill had with Tyler was very long standing, even longer than me. And Bill was really like, as you said, use the word mentor, which is a great word. Bill was a great mentor to myself and many others in this building. In a lot of situations, kind of like a father figure. I lost my father last year, and then Bill was very, very supportive when that happened, and was one of those moments of, hey, I'm here for you. You need to bounce something, or just come in my office and give me shut the door and start screaming. I don't care. Come in and do it. And that's probably of all things at Storm we probably miss the most is I miss that being able to close the door and say, hey, Bill, I got a problem, and I need you to talk to me both sides as the owner of this company, but I need you also to talk to me as a person. I just want to, there's no doubt Mr. Chrisman was the most honest, dedicated person I'd ever been around. And so I knew I was never going to get the sugar-coated, but in those moments when he knew he needed to put his arm around you, he'd be like, hey, listen, buddy, you're okay. We're going to get through this. And so that's probably the biggest thing for myself, and I think a few others here we miss, is Bill was always kind of the voice of reason when we maybe had some crazy ideas, and he was going to go, hell, let's do it. That sounds great. Or what the heck are you guys thinking?
Yeah.
But I was kind in the word that I used there versus WTF versus WTH.
Yeah, exactly. So, man, so Tyler's got the big shoes to fill.
Yeah, he does. And the thing about Tyler is he's a very dedicated individual as well too, and that's his work ethic and the things that he's trying to do and continue to push the legacy that Mr. Chrisman started, and many of us have continued to drive the ship over the years and throughout the last several years. I mean, Bill was very for us. He gave us he always used to joke, I'm going to give you some rope and you decide what you're going to do with it. You're either going to pull yourself up or you're going to hang yourself by it. So you guys, and he was always really good about supporting the things that we wanted to do. And he had a lot of ideas that we definitely pushed forward with and brought to light. The things we'll probably miss most is, he sometimes just could look outside and like he felt like almost like the outside the box kind of guy. Like he could sometimes step out and go, hey guys, what about this? And we'd be so kind of entrenched in what we're doing that we'd like maybe lose sight a little bit, that you have to step back and maybe take a little bit bigger view of it sometimes. Right. And Bill was always so good at that.
Right. So it sounds like, tell me if this is fair to say, so it sounds like, it might be easy for people to think that the CEO and kind of founder of the biggest bowling ball company ever made would be some kind of real technical genius. But it sounds like he's really more of a relational genius in terms of his ability to understand when to have a boundary, when to be empathetic, when to be encouraging, and kind of, is that fair?
Bill's a super smart guy and had a lot of great ideas. And the biggest thing he always said was, I might not, when we'd start talking tech and about, this is what, hey, Bill, I built this shape because of this, and these contours do this and that. And he goes, hey, listen. I understand. It's progressed a lot past the styrofoam cup and making a mold of that, or a terracotta, pot. It's progressed a lot past that point. And that's why I surround myself with people like you and Alex and Steve and Chad and all the boys. That's why you guys are here, and that's why we make the best balls in the world.
What's up, guys? Just a quick message to say that if you like bowling videos like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button. As always, we appreciate the support so much. We're growing quickly, and we can't thank you enough. Now let's get back to the interview.
So I trust you guys. That was where you started. I trust you guys.
Yeah, and I did mention that, leaning into trust as well. So it's hard to be a great leader, and the only real way that I've tried to learn and get better at it is identifying other great leaders and trying to learn from them, because it's hard to put it in a textbook. At least for me, it's hard to learn it that way. So
it is. The biggest thing about leadership is you lead by example. And I think Bill was always the first to, he didn't mind getting his hands dirty and jumping in there and doing whatever he needed to do. But he also knew sometimes I need to step back and let my people grow a little bit. And great leaders have a tendency, they'll let their teammates, they'll let their pupils or whatever you want to call them along the way, they'll let their players excel. And they know, as long as a good leader gives boundaries and a good player stays in the boundaries, and then when he wants to push the boundary, he turns to the leader and says, hey, can we push the boundary? He doesn't just jump past it. That's the thing is, and he has that respect. And Bill always had that respect of all of us. And that's the thing is, and Tyler stepping in this position, it's one of those things is he's trying to lead by example. He's trying to continue to jump in to be part of it, and earning the respect of many of us in this building.
Yeah, no, that's cool. And it sounds like, Tyler having a relationship with Bill since he was a teenager obviously should give a lot of peace of mind to the Storm enthusiasts that this person kind of taking over the helm, Bill had a huge amount of influence in, if he's been influencing him or impacting him since he was 12 or 13. So you mentioned Bill's trust in you and your technical team on bowling ball design. So obviously being a pro shop guy, and I love the technical stuff as well. Let's dive into that for the bowling ball junkies. Where I want to start with first, though, is how do you think consumers should think about marketing? Really just the fact that companies have to generate sales. People also want to buy new bowling balls. It's marketing versus actual advancement of technology as a consumer, and then also just for the industry, anybody in the industry watching this that is a pro shop operator. How do you think we should think about those things?
Well, it's a tough balance. I mean, the balance of marketing to the balance of technology and understanding design and why we develop, and the subtle little changes that you could make to something. And some people would say, oh, it's just a bunch of marketing. You're just trying to, put lipstick on a pig or something, whatever you want to call it. It's but in some situations, the subtle marketing that you do is really technology based. And over the years, many things that we've done we've been the innovators in a lot of different aspects of design and development, from split density balls of the past to these crazy elliptical balls that we've built to, I think we were the first one to build a super cover. Mo Pinnell always said, you beat us to the punch on that super cover. And so that was the one thing. And so some people would say, oh, it's just a big marketing. But I mean, when we developed a super cover and people were like, oh, that's just, it's marketing. You're just trying to overhype and oversell. And in the end, no, we had raw data. I mean, if you wanted to publish all the raw data and just throw it all over the place, it would, it's a balance. You got to balance that the innovation and technology to the let's sell it, let's market it, let's push it to the people. What makes this ball, or what makes this so much better, or what makes it different? And sometimes I think a lot of times in people say, it's just another asymmetrical ball, or it's that you guys use the Shape Lock HD again. You just threw another cover on it and just trying to sell it different. No, every time we've ever made another virtual like gravity or anything like that, we've always said, well, we can take a performance proven shape internally, and now we've added another cover to it. Not just, we're just throwing another color out there. It's another marketing ploy. No, a lot of times, we've really tried to pride ourselves in the innovators and developing these innovations and then delivering them to the public and trying to explain it to the public. And, the marketing team sometimes maybe gets they put a lot of emphasis on, some other, parts of it. And we really, on the development side, we influence that quite a bit. And They're very good about, the marketing team's very good about delivering as many assets out there as for the pro shops, but also you're trying to sell it 3 times. You're trying to sell it to a distributor. I'm trying to sell it to the pro shop, and I'm also trying to sell it to the consumer. So what makes it valuable for the distributor to buy more? What makes it valuable for the pro shops to bring it into their building, to bring it into their place of business? And then how do they sell it to the consumer? And why should the consumer buy it? So there is a lot of marketing to it, but your levels of development of that sales are different across all levels. To the distributor, he's just, how many do I have to buy? What's my terms? All that stuff. So you're trying to entice, but on the pro shop side, we really try to sell the technology and understanding to the pro shop. So we can be a little more technical in some of the information that's delivered. And in the end, consumer, maybe it's a little bit more of a 10,000 foot look at how beautiful this is and how much technology there is. But what makes it to the end user, what makes it to the common better than anything else we've done in the past? So that's kind of the trying to sell it 3 times.
Yeah, for sure. No, that totally makes sense. And that's a big hill to climb from a manufacturer point of view. So my question is often people talk about, when you go back in the day, you walked in a pro shop and there was maybe 6 balls and a ball was released and it was out for a longer period of time. Sure. And now you hear some complaining about the number of releases. I know from being in the pro shop space that if sometimes we're in a much different economy now where it's not always about function. There's a lot of entertainment or what I would call hedonic products or hedonic purchasing being made. And so would you agree that if you spaced out the releases even further, do you believe that you would actually sell less bowling balls, or if there was less releases in general? Does that question make sense?
It does make sense. And you're right, though, that this market, this generation has shifted a little bit. And we've seen in the technology of the advancements of telephones and everything else, and the newest, latest, greatest iPhone it might be a little bit better camera or whatever, but consumers like to see new. They like to see the technology. They like to continue to push that and what's the latest, greatest. Now, I'm a little bit maybe old school traditionalist, and I'm like, those products are really good. Let's let them have a little longevity. But what we've seen so much in the recent with our sales force, we talk to them constantly, and we constantly ask the question: "Is what are you hearing? What are you hearing?" And let's just say we introduced an attention star, so that from Roto Grip side a month or so ago, and I was with Schlemmer. And the first text he got was, "When's the solid coming?" It's 3 days. It's 3 days old.
Yeah.
But there is still a big, okay, all right, now I like that. Oh, when are you gonna do the next one? And a good friend of mine works for Titleist, and so golf and bowling they run parallels because of sport, and there's both a competition side of it and there's a recreational side of it, and Titleist used to make a set of irons every other year. They used to make a driver every other year, and now they're introducing them every year and sometimes multiple a year. And I asked the head of sales at Acushnet, I have a kind of a little bit of relationship with him via emails, and I said, "What do you see on your side?" He goes, "It's insane to see the change in the buying public, as they like that technology, but man, what's next?"
Exactly. Novelty is for viewers, if you haven't seen it, I think there's a great video. If you on YouTube, you can do like CNBC and Stanley Cup, and they talked about the transformation of Stanley. For those of you that don't, I have a wife who's obsessed with Stanley Cups.
Sure.
And Stanley used to be this very functional, men's oriented brand, and now they went to where it was you just bought 1, 2, and they lasted forever. And they pivoted to a lot of different colors, working with these limited editions and really leveraging novelty. And that single move with that single product is basically 10x the entire company's sales. And that's what I've always wondered is if, in Titleist's case, which you could put in a ball manufacturer, if you guys space them out and you have this product that's been out a while and they release this new product and you don't release anything, to me, it's an opportunity for that company to get, that customer's like, "Ooh, there's something new. I want to buy it." And now you're potentially losing out. And so I just wanted to get your point of view on that, because there's always a lot of debate. And I feel that even though it can be tough managing inventory in the pro shop, consumers can get frustrated. They can feel like I just bought something and now it's outdated. I really do believe that the manufacturers are trying to walk that line pretty well to make sure they're not losing market share, and also just trying to sell as many bowling balls as possible, keep people bowling, keep people interested in bowling, while also doing it in an efficient way. Because obviously if you start to make too many bowling balls, it becomes inefficient, and then the economic impacts are there,
100%. And the biggest thing for us is trying to interlace those releases as you go through, is not trying to overlap in cover and ASIM versus SIMs, higher, lowers, price points and everything. You're trying to kind of interlace those as they go across, versus you're not going against each other. We're trying not to get one on top of another one, so that there are still some chances for those balls to flourish and go. And we've seen some balls that, even in a time where there's a bigger turnover rate of SKUs, we've seen balls flourish and go. I mean, virtual energy blackouts are still a very hot selling ball. Summits from last summer are still on what we call we have a 30-day rolling average of sales. Summit still holds a very high number in that. So sometimes there are balls that are still much needed, much sought after. I mean, in the grand scheme of phase twos, we came out in 2016. We had a rolling 30 last month that was the highest rolling 30 we've ever seen, ever.
Really? Wow.
And it's 7 years old, 8 years old.
That's amazing. That's incredible.
There are still staples out there that we know that they become keystone products in pro shops. A phase two is a keystone product that I've got to have it. Tournament time, Open championships are coming, and the guy walks in and, hey, I need a good ball for oil. And pro shop has no doubt looking at him going, I think you need a phase two. And well, if he doesn't have as much ball speed, maybe an IQ Tour. So that's 2012. There's 12 years there. Yeah. I mean, there's still some keystone products out there for us, and iconic products, but you're still always trying to, can you push a little bit of technology? Can you deliver a little bit different level of performance? Yeah. And it is a cycle. Yeah. And so it's a delicate balance. And for us, even in the three brands between Storm, 900 Global and Roto Grip, we've only had one extra performance release from 22 to 23, only one. But there's so many in the industry, there's so many in the marketplace that it's hard to see. And the turnover is higher. We used to our average longevity of a product before, from start to discontinue across all the SKUs, was about 14 months on average. Wow. Now that has shifted down to between 11 and 12 months now. On the Storm side, it's closer to the 13, 14 month, but maybe on the global side, it's more about an 11 to 12 month cycle, as well as the Roto Grip side. That's so it's still, those cycles are still holding longer. It's just we might not have as many on the initial rollout. They might sell through a little differently. It's just the market has shifted quite a bit.
Yeah, and this is a little bit my soapbox because I deal with it so much with the pro shop guys. So I know viewers are here to listen to Hank, but the other aspect for me as well is, bowling competing against other recreational activities. And, if there isn't that bowling ball that shows up on the Facebook timeline, it could be like you said, a golf club. It could be something else. And then it's like, all right, now they have their golf club and they're testing their golf club at the range instead of the new bowling ball. And they're that much closer to maybe I don't bowl this summer. Maybe I take the summer off and I go golf more, and there's absolutely a much broader competition that we are all on the same team together, trying to keep people in bowling. And those decisions happen, in that novelty realm of what is the next interesting purchase. So we'll move on to the next one. That one, like I said, that one's kind of my soapbox. You mentioned a little bit the technical side of bowling balls and trying to make sure they don't, you release ASIMs and SIMs. When consumers are thinking about buying bowling balls, what do you think they should really focus on the most? What do you see that consumers or pro shops maybe put too much weight on when trying to choose bowling balls, and what should they maybe put more weight on?
I think, honestly, this is where it's the most important thing about making the right decision is understanding the bowler. I mean, I think the biggest thing, and Craig, Alex and I teach an innovative school twice a year in Pennsylvania, 4 days of intense training to pro shops. And I think that's still the biggest thing. Pro shops need to understand the player they're trying to drill a ball for and the environment that they're going to play in as well too. Because knowing that player, you got to know their speed, their rev rate, axis rotation, tilt is key for today. I mean, we can't put balance holes in them anymore. So we
Yep.
really need to understand that player, and we need to be able to see it. I started drilling balls in 1985 when I was 15 years old. And the first guy I ever worked for, he would not drill a ball for a player if he did not see them bowl. So I've held that philosophy close, near and dear. But I
Amen,
know,
man.
I know in those busy shops of yours, and like when I was there last week, you weren't going to get anybody out there on the lane at that time frame because it was an entire full house. So I think that's a tough one too. The
Yeah.
pro shops need to know, first and foremost, they need to know the player that they're drilling the ball for. They need to understand the technology that goes into that ball and where it's really designed to fit. So from that layout starts to develop. That for that player, there's a sweet spot based on the speeds, the rev rates for the player based on the conditions they're going to try to use it on. Which now that's, let's just say they're coming in, they want the benchmark ball. Okay, you've got to decide where that player is, and then you've got a benchmark, and then it's easy to build the matrix around it. But if you're missing the target slightly one right or one left of that, and you start to add other pieces to their arsenal, you could be going down the wrong path with that
Yeah. No,
player. And
I
I'm a
couldn't.
you have to match them right. I go back to the pro shop days myself, as I would guarantee that the ball you were getting was going to be, I felt was the right ball for you. And if it wasn't, I told you could keep it, and I would replace it with another bowling ball. And in all
Yeah.
my years, I only had to do it one time.
Yeah, exactly. No, I love that, Hank. I couldn't agree more. We aren't exactly, we won't drill it for you, but I train and I try to emphasize the guys.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure they have human moments of really communicating to the customer. Look, we could do a much better job if we watch you bowl.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not comfortable with that, or you don't have the time for that, and you want to kind of get in and out, we'll still do whatever you would like. But now, and I think the next question is sometimes I hear within pro shops or even customers will go, well, I'm just a new bowler, or I
Sure.
don't use my thumb, and so I just
Mm-hmm.
need something. I can make it hook, I can adjust. Do you think there's any scenario that doesn't lend an advantage to seeing someone bowl?
So if it's a new bowler and you're trying to make a good decision, the biggest thing is there's those key questions you can always ask. Compare your speed to the other people around you. When you see other people bowl and you see them, rotate a bowling ball, compare yourself. Is it more or less, there's some that can get you down the path, but there are some balls out there that give you a big window to hit too.
Yeah.
Like a phase two is a huge window, but it might be too much. But if you're going to go like an entry level performance balls, there's a lot of them offering out there in the industry, and they're just getting started. So their investment might not be, I'm not going to spend 200, but I will spend within a window. Let's just say 100 to 200. I'm going to find the window. So we have a lot of entry level balls from a lot of manufacturers. Then you have to decide, okay, and at that point, there's a certain amount of performance that they're going to have, right?
Yep.
So then it's an aesthetic look after that. So okay,
Right.
here's 4 or 5 of them right here that are pretty similar. I can change them a little bit I know they come shiny, but maybe if you throw the ball a little harder, let's see it, and then we might need to adjust the serve. So you keep trying to ask as many questions, and I know that's the hardest thing for your guys and for anybody out there, is that you're trying to create a picture of the bowler without ever seeing them throw a shot.
Yeah.
That's the most difficult thing for a pro shop guy to do. He can fit him, and then he says, well, sometimes I put my thumb in, sometimes I don't. The hard thing is, like, if you're not going to put your thumb in, I'm not supposed to put a thumb in this ball.
Exactly. Yeah.
But if I put your thumb in this ball and you don't put it in there, then I'm at fault or I'm liable because, anyway, if they're just, and the questions of, do you bowl in a league or is it just recreation? And in those situations, you want them to have as much fun as possible. So you could say, oh yeah, if you don't want to put your thumb in, you don't have to. But if you're going to bowl in competition, you have to, whatever hole is in the ball has to have a finger or thumb in it.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Yeah. No, totally agreed. And something else that we try to do as well, any pro shops or anybody out there watching, you can even if you're a consumer, you can suggest it to the pro shop, is demo balls, especially with the surge of no thumbers or two-handers. You really only need one ball. It almost doesn't matter the bowling ball, and you can just put some interchangeable fingers in there. You can choose your brand. We use Turbo, but the Vice IFs are good as well. But yeah, that allows you to see new bowlers bowl as well. So I couldn't agree more with you, Hank. I'm glad you went there. Do you, speaking on choosing the bowling balls and stuff like that, this is kind of a personal question that I have. I don't know if too many viewers would care about this, but do you ever see us being able to get to a more quantifiable way of looking at cover stocks? So if I'm a new bowler, a new bowling ball is going to hit the market, I can look at the RGs and differentials, but it's really hard to know. And a good example, and you can tell me if this is wrong, but like the Crux, was it Crux Prime? Was the white one? It had like a spec cover stock on it. It was very different cover. But there was no like quantitative way to understand how that might be different than like a gem.
Sure. And until the industry agrees to a standardization of like whether we're doing the profilometer measurements, where we're doing a laser scanner measurement, and it's hard to, we're not, could we deliver our oil absorption times and things like that? Those are things that where we as a manufacturer are using and doing all these tests, and we have all these numbers. There's an industry standard of RG and differentials, which are just a static mass, where's the mass located in the ball, how much difference is there between X, Y, and Z axes. We have no problem telling you that. I think there's still this hold it close to the chest is, oh my, this ball has an RA of 46 at 500 grit Aberlon. Now, you understand what that is, but the consumer's going to look at you and go, okay, what's a 46 RA going to do for me?
Right.
And we could deliver those things. We could also deliver, okay, oil absorption on this ball is 12 minutes based on the USBC standard operating procedure for measuring oil absorption. But how does that relate? How can I can give you that, Craig, and you understand that totally. But now, once again, now you've got to educate or try to make the consumer understand that if this has an oil absorption rate of 12 minutes and this one has an oil absorption rate of 21 minutes, is this one better than this one? Is this one going to hook more? Because even the 21 minute might have an RA value at 500 of 46, but the 12-minute one might have an RA value of 35 at the same 500 grit. So there are intermingling factors that happen within these covers and the chemistry. It's so hard to like really put a definable number or measurement system on it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Alex is downstairs right now in the middle of a ball test that I'm going to catch the end of it, hopefully, of a whole nother cover generation that we're working on. We've got some crazy ones that we're working on right now. So, but we have all the numbers and we know what it looks like, and we know exactly that difference from what an R2S is to an ERG cover to an NRG cover to all these, the TX covers and all those things that we've had. We have very definable numbers. It's just we've always kind of kept those a little bit more
private.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because some of those are very definable for other manufacturers that go, oh, that's what they're doing. Oh, they've got that going on. Maybe we need to go down that path to see if we can get closer to that.
Yeah, and that totally makes sense. So it's really trying to maintain a competitive advantage. I guess the way that I look at it, and it could be wrong, is we hear so much about how much more important the cover stock is than the core and surface and those kinds of things. And I would say that RG and differential and intermediate differential, they kind of create the same potential. Like, how does that relate to the consumer? It ultimately just drives them into the pro shop's hands, and you hope the pro shop can help them in that way. And I guess this is me saying I would love to be able to have those types of units of measure for the most important aspect of ball motion, the cover stock.
100%. And maybe one of these days we'll get in a room, the big three, and we'll have that that we can kind of share these numbers. We tried a few years back to try to create a standard, and we had one manufacturer that just was like, absolutely not. We don't even want to participate. We used to have these roundtable meetings a couple times a year between BBIA and Bowl Expo and Summit and things like that, where we'd get in a room, we would chat about things going on in the industry. We weren't talking about any setting anything and doing anything, no collusion, but it was just talking about what they're seeing, what we're seeing, kind of thing. Just, hey, how can we do this and understand that we're going to make this industry better together? But all of a sudden, there was one manufacturer decided, no, we don't want to be in these meetings anymore, and that was it. So they were done.
Okay, well, see, there you go, and that makes sense. So talking about standardization with the cover stocks is a great segue into the USBC issues. So hardness around the bowling balls that you guys had, changed where they could only be used in like league play, those kinds of things, as well as PBA coming out with their hardness rules. And so my question to you is, and for those of you that don't know, the PBA has changed the hardness rule for urethane on the PBA tour only. The USBC, they said that their data did not support that there was a performance change when the bowling ball got softer with use. Is that correct, Hank?
That is correct. Yep.
Yeah.
They said there was not a noticeable change.
Right. So you have the USBC saying there's not a noticeable change when the urethane gets softer with use, as opposed to if it's softer through manufacturing. And the PBA said that that's not the case. A softer ball is better performance, regardless of how it becomes softer. And so you end up having these two pretty big entities with two different outcomes. For me, my question to you is, should myself or consumers take anything away from the fact that USBC provided specto data with their findings? And on your end, because you're way smarter than me, was there any maybe flaws in that specto data or the research that they published? And should we take anything from the fact that the PBA didn't provide anything like that?
I mean, testing is testing. There's always, you can critique it whatever way you want to look at it. And people would find flaws and try to find flaws in everything. But they did a very thorough study. They did not show a noticeable difference in the balls as they got softer. There was, and I don't know, I mean, as far as all the way down to a certain number, I think you could have probably pushed the envelope even softer and might have saw some more definitive differences as you got past it. I think there's a window and a threshold of when you get past a certain number, we know from our experience of our data that we've tested that as it gets below a certain hardness, you do start to see a little bit difference in performance. There is an enhancement of where it reads the lane front to back. And as better players, if their ball isn't going to miss the spot going front to back, they do have a little bit more of an advantage. But the USBC's data and testing was extremely thorough. But based on their conclusions and the way they mapped their data out, they did not show a significance in enhanced performance past a certain window. So the PBA, on the other hand, they did some testing on their own, and we've got their data and their results of the tests that they've done. The biggest thing for, I think, the PBA is they just did not want to see a ball after use get below 73 hardness. That was the biggest. They just were trying to take any of that probability or doubt that that's going to be a better performance. So basically, they set the number at 78 because they saw as much or more 5 points of decreasing in hardness with certain urethane balls with usage. Then there's, USBC talks about some shearing effects of the cover would create this where they would get a softer read of the cover stock with a durometer. So the PBA was trying to eliminate that possibility of a ball going into competition, being used, and dropping below a standard of 73.
Got it. So the PBA was just more principled in the fact of like, look, if the rule is 73, the rule should be 73, regardless of how much performance you can prove out or not. That's just the rule, and use is clearly making it go below that, and that makes sense. So that totally makes sense.
Yeah, and so they classify those urethane balls, and it's based on oil absorption. So the same machine that USBC uses in their SOP to test oil absorption in cover stocks, the PBA is using the same, doing the same testing. We all use the same machine, same oil, exactly the same. So if anything is longer than an hour, then it falls into what they call a urethane category. Then it has to be a hardness above a certain number. And so that's that 78 hardness window. Now, if a ball absorbs oil faster than, or there's a window of less than but more than time frame, then it falls into, there's additional testing done on that ball.
Got it.
So
now,
and it can't ever drop. The biggest thing is it can't ever drop below 73.
Right. And now some of the bowling balls that you guys have released as urethane cover stocks, would they still all fall under as urethane cover stocks with that hour?
Yeah, pitch black's was definitely over an hour. UC3's over an hour. Yeah, you got the urethane Zen, the Zen U over an hour.
Yep.
So, but they fall on the USBC side of the rule, where we target around 74, 75 on a pitch black, but yet it still absorbs oil over an hour, but it's based on what they changed the standard to, the pitch black now comes out of play. It's
Right.
the same thing with the purple ball, because the purple ball falls within the USBC spec of 73, but during use and measuring post usage, those balls read below, and even a pitch black might go from 75 to 73. And there's been maybe one or two that have gone. I think they had one or two tested. I think it's published somewhere. I think that one or two balls, I think it was Jesper had a ball, or maybe Bomo had a ball that tested, like it fell right below 73, but when it was let to set again, it went right back above over like a 24-hour window or something. I can't remember all. There's been a lot of
There's a
things.
lot. Yes.
Yeah. So all the PBA was trying to do was to say 73 is the number the USBC sets. So we don't ever want a ball to drop below that point. That's the trick.
Yeah. Now, based on that, have you been surprised at all to see the amount of the harder urethane still be used at the PBA level, or is it about what you expected?
No, I mean, you remember, you still got those rev rates, and they're still going to put patterns out that are not, there's still a lot of hook to the pattern, not as much volume in it. And the rev rates, sheer rev rates, still going to force you into a urethane ball, into a urethane type reaction, no matter what. And we've been very fortunate that 78U was I think we do more testing on urethane and trying to develop new urethanes sometimes than we do on reactive urethanes, because it is such a unique chemistry, because you're not extending covers, you're not creating other matrix structures to the urethane, you're not creating additives into the cover to stretch out that, here I go again, hold on, bear with me. You're not trying to create a different friction number or elasticity of the cover. You're stuck with urethane. So we've been very fortunate. We have a great urethane chemist, and we've had the same urethane chemist now since 2005. And ironically, his son went to school for polymer chemistry, got a master's in polymer urethane chemistry. So now we have the young blood that's in there. And so this is the coolest thing, is you have our storied chemist and our original chemist, who leaps and bounds did some things that nobody ever done in this industry, and pushed us with these super covers. And now you have a son that's fresh out of college, that is freshly educated to new things that you can do and add to urethanes to create different things. And he's like, oh man, we're just getting started. This is cool.
Exciting.
And that's the neat thing about it, is he's fresh and he's an athlete. He was a D1 tennis player.
Wow.
And his brother's a D1 tennis player, going to play on the ATP tour when he graduates, probably, unless he wants to go into computer. He might end up in computer science, but they athletes, and he's become a bowler. And he came in, I fit him up 6 months ago, and I said, how much you bowled? I haven't really bowled much. And that whole thing of, we spent a little time, I fit him, and then he came back and he said, yeah, I think I I want to change something, but I think and you give him that first fit. By the first time you see him bowl, I always say there's a static fit, a kinetic fit, and there's a performance fit. There's 3 different fits. So you gave him a static fit to start, let him bowl a little bit, and then he started to do some things, and so now we had to change his fit because of the way he was bowling. But that's how much he's gotten into bowling, and just loves it. So
that's awesome.
That's an added value for us on this development of these urethanes. And he's like, oh no, there's a couple different kinds of urethane that we can use, and there's 2 parts of urethane, polyol and isocyanate. The magic falls in the polyol. So he said, oh no, I've got there's some new polyols that we can tinker around with, and I think I can get the hardness up with a couple little things in it that will give us the friction values we want, but at a harder footprint. And this 78U's been, those guys have been, and it's, I guess, the Open Championships. I guess there's people having some great successes at the Open Championships, I keep hearing. And some people posting online. And so I bowl this week, so I'm going to take my 78U along with my pitch black.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's cool. It'll be cool to see what comes out of there with the new blood, like you were saying. It does make me think of a question, and I can always edit it out or whatever. But looking back at your competitors, mainly around urethane, the Purple Hammer,
Mhm.
We also had the question earlier around marketing versus actual advancement.
Mhm.
If you had like one question that you knew you could get the answer to around the Purple Hammer or Brunswick, is there a question? Is there like, man, I wish we could crack this code that maybe they have? Or do you think it's really, really effective marketing on the technology that they have?
Well, I mean, Craig, honestly, the performance was there. It was something it's an anomaly in performance, and we've seen that, and I've watched it. We tested them as well too. I'm sure in the early years of us developing Nano and some super covers, I'm sure there was some points where they were going, man, what's the magic in, what's the dust in there?
Right.
What are you guys throwing in there? And so
Yeah.
even with the purple balls, there was some question, and we kind of had an idea and we knew what was going on. But I think the biggest thing for us is we knew that the degradation of the cover stock over time, we didn't want to go down an integral role of developing something like that. Sure, we could have
Right.
had a ball that, yeah, it was 73 hardness, but if you bowled with it a lot, we probably could have got it into the 60s. But Mr. Chrisman's in the integrity side of the business, we didn't want to go down a path of doing things like that. So
Sure.
we had an understanding of kind of where they were going and what they were doing. But hey, it gave them a totally unique shape and ball motion and roll. And in some situations, even to this day, it's an anomaly when it comes to performance.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally makes sense. So the last question I have for you is on that USBC side. Again, you have this, you're the product designer, you're a gold coach, you have so many angles. So you have this unique perspective. In what ways do you think the USBC could have better communicated or improved policy or processes regarding all of their decisions around standardization, including hardness, as well as, we talked earlier about cover stock
Hmm.
standardization in terms of being
Hmm.
able to provide the pro shop metrics to
Hmm.
understand more of what the ball is going to do before we sell it. If you had a magic wand and you said, all right, I really think this would be the more optimal process, what do you think it would be? What do you think the improvement would look like?
I mean, honestly, the ultimate for the USBC and anybody else is the tool that we had to use or have to use at this point is a durometer, and it's a D-tip durometer, so you're getting a sure D measurement. We discovered, and I think over time they realized there was some inconsistencies in the measurements that could be found from ball to ball. And also, there was some inconsistencies if I went from a sanded ball to a polished ball, back to a sanded ball, back, and there's some inconsistencies. I just say that the gauge R&R on the tool is quite high, and the user gauge R&R. That's the other thing is the repeatability between if you test it and I test it, we might not get the exact same number. It might be a variance, and even
Right.
from operator to operator, it's higher than probably it should be, but it's the only tool at the time, right? And still to this day, it's the only tool we currently have to measure the hardness.
So do you think USBC should play a more active role in coming up with a new tool?
Craig, I guarantee you, they're looking at every aspect, and they're looking at every angle of measuring devices and ways to measure and do a correlation between a measurement of, so let's just say, a footprint versus a durometer measurement, and can there be a standardization put in place that way? Sure, I think there's a lot of different ways to test hardness. There's a lot of different ways to test that footprint and measurement, but devices and can sometimes be on a monetary side could be astronomical to try to do that, and
So it's
also timing and the ability to do a full study and then develop a standard, and then if we send them a product, how fast can they get an approval done on that? Because if
right.
some processes might take longer to get this to go through a process of testing and approval, there's also that portion of it as well too. And it's just strict manpower. I mean, you've got a department down there in Arlington. They're doing a heck of a job with pretty much not a lot of people, and they're putting a lot of bowling balls through an approval process. I mean, from us, and you talked about the number of releases on the domestic side is 1/4 of what we release worldwide.
Wow. Wow,
There's
that's interesting
there's
stuff.
over there's over I think we had over 100 performance balls approved last year.
Wow.
That's just our three brands. Now
Wow.
bring the seven brands of Brunswick in there, and let's just say there's another couple hundred, and there's
Yeah.
you got to figure there's only what 220 working days in a year, something like that.
Yeah.
So you're trying to approve basically 2 balls a day.
Yeah. So
At
it
least.
sounds to me like you're saying, balancing the standardization aspects that we would all love to have with the economic and business aspects throughout the entire industry is maybe a lot more complex than even I or a lot of people give it credit. And it sounds like maybe you feel like the USBC is actually doing a pretty good job, all things considered, because no
Hey,
one's going to be perfect.
yeah, they're doing the best they can, like I said. And I think the things that happened to us and those 6 balls that came into play, and the narrow margins in which they were, negated. But I also think us having a lot of conversations back and forth, we've been a lot more open to sharing everything we're seeing, and they're sharing. There's a lot more of that information that's getting shared than ever has in the past. And I think that's
Oh, that's
a
great.
credit to both sides. Is that I think we all realize that the tool has some. It is the tool. It's the tool we use. And can we improve upon it? Yeah, I think we all know we can. Is there a better way to do it? But trying to find the better way to do it in a way that can be done in a process that's, timeline can be managed. There's a lot to it. And I think us sharing that data back and forth, I mean, now when they send their tool out for calibration, we send ours with theirs. Every manufacturer sends their tools in, and they get calibrated all at the same time, and we get calibrated to what is basically a USBC standard calibration, so that our tools are reading as close to they possibly can, because tools over time wear. The spring wears. They're probably punching a lot more balls than we are, but we punch a lot of balls. We do a ton of testing, so
Right.
there is a time for the gauge that it goes over so much time, we start to see it shift. And in some situations, a device might shift faster. Theirs might shift faster, or ours might shift faster the next time.
Sure.
There's no way to always say it's going to be exactly the same over 5,000 punches.
Yeah, totally makes
So
sense. But
yeah,
it sounds to me like you're saying that at least the communication and the relationship between the USBC and at least Storm, it sounds like, and maybe more entities, is better now than it was prior to all the hardness issues. Is
yeah,
that what?
I believe so, 100%. I believe that there's a lot greater level of communication. The portal is a lot more open back and forth. And I think the biggest thing is, if we see something that's like starting to shift, we're the first to ask a question. And we ask this, and they've been very open as well too, is if they see a shift, they're giving us that, where they see, hey, something's moving here a little bit, or we're noticing that the trends might be changing a little bit. So they've been very good about that level, and has been much better.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think that's a positive note to end on, because I think a lot of people view the hardness, and of course, social media doesn't do a great job of helping with this, but I think many people view it as this new splinter that kind of started to divide the industry
Sure.
because people were so divided on social media. But maybe at the highest levels, with guys like yourself, maybe it's actually the opposite. Maybe it was a problem that has become an opportunity to standardize and improve things around hardness and the cover stock. And maybe someday I'll experience my pro shop operator dream of there being metrics on what the heck is the cover stock going to do, So,
Sure.
but Hank, I had a bunch of questions around you being a gold coach, and viewers, if you'd like to maybe hear from Hank again and see how does he think about getting lessons or coaching versus getting a new bowling ball as a gold coach and a ball designer. So maybe we can hop into that another time. If you'd like to see that, let us know down in the comments. Hank, thanks so much. I had a little bit of a cold, viewers. Sorry if it was hard to understand me, but I can't thank you, man. I told you 30 minutes and we're at almost an hour. So you're just
You're good.
incredible.
You're
I
good. I'll
appreciate
talk to you
you.
as much as you want, bud. So yeah,
Yeah,
if you want to come back and talk coaching, I'll talk coaching all you want. That's my other great passion, is helping people to understand what they are and where they can go, and what can make them better.
awesome. Sounds good. Yeah, I'm sure I'll reach out to you, because time flies by. It felt like 15 minutes, and just listening to you is great. So Hank, thanks so much, man. And as always, guys, like, comment, subscribe, and comment down below who else you'd like for us to try to interview. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.
We hope you found this video useful. As always, if you like videos like this, make sure you hit subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching.